You are listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode I'm chatting to founder of Hunter Communications and the Collaborations Agency, the first of its kind in Ireland. Growing up in Dublin, the entrepreneur had been adventurous from the word go, but it was a summer spent in Paris after graduating from school that changed everything. Bitten by the travel bug, she landed herself a role working on Airlines in London, where she learned a lot about the day-to-day operations of a brand, and more importantly, how to publicise and manage its reputation. Returning back home a few years later, she fell into her calling as a PR manager and dove straight into the industry headfirst. Making a name for herself by pounding the pavement led to an opportunity to go out on her own, and well, the rest is an almost 12-year history. Chatting to me about the importance of online creators, the longevity of influencers, and how she grew her company from a two-women show in her upstairs bedroom to a bustling office of people in the centre of the city, here's what it's like to be Lynn Hunter. Before we get stuck into the episode, I just wanted to say that if there is a drop in sound quality throughout, I'm very sorry, but in respect of social distancing during COVID-19, I've had to record episodes remotely. During this challenging time, we're all just trying our best, so I really hope everyone is staying safe and that you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. I think it would be a really interesting starting point if we could go all the way back and chat a little bit about what it was like for you growing up. Were you always really entrepreneurial? Is it something that came later? Or
first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. If we take it back, I'd say a lot of my friends, I still have the same friends that I have done since I was 3 years of age. They'll probably laugh at this, but I was always a bit of a Dell boy, always seeing opportunities. And, I was always the one who was stealing apples from the orchard and selling them to the kids on the road, whether they wanted them or not. So I think I definitely would have got my entrepreneurial streak from my grandmother, who was way ahead of her time, especially when she was growing up. She was quite a phenomenal woman. But I always had it. I think I'm the youngest of five. We're all quite headstrong. We're quite driven. Growing up in a house, there was a lot of noise. And my mother, I think definitely, my mom and dad definitely instilled that you could do anything you wanted and you could achieve anything you wanted growing up. So I think we were always kind of given the freedom to explore options and opportunities that were really of interest to us. And we are quite a sporty family. So I would have played a lot of tennis and golf. We would have been on the circuit as kids, and when I say on the circuit, we would have played a lot of tournaments. My sister was number one in Ireland for most of her junior life, so at tennis, so we would have traveled the country. But yeah, I think there was probably a bit of a competitive streak as well. When you're the youngest of five, I think you have to try and find your own voice. But I at school, I wouldn't have, I always had a great self-belief, and I think that was instilled in us. But I probably wasn't the brightest kid in the class, or I was led to believe. But I always had a lot of self-confidence. And I always knew that I always wanted to travel, and I always knew I wanted to be my own boss. I always knew that I loved learning from people. I loved, if I had an interest in something, if it's something sparked my interest, I would go, I would really be the first to sort of explore that. But I suppose in school, I wouldn't have been considered to be in the best class. I wouldn't have, a lot of my teachers sort of, some of them would have had an interest in me, but I would have just sort of, I was always, I suppose, the one up for the fun. And also, I suppose I would have been quite sporty. So I think with sport, I think I got away with quite a lot of stuff. But I suppose in later life, I was always good, I suppose, at bringing people together. And if I had a task to do, I always did it quite efficiently and quite fast. So I suppose I was always quite good at seeing opportunities, and I fell into this. Like I fell into my career, to tell you the truth, because after school, after I finished my leaving, much to my parents' dismay, I packed my bag and I went to Paris, and we were jeune fille au pairs for the first year. So we had a lot of fun in Paris, and we were open to a lot of culture, a lot of walks of life. And Dublin wouldn't have been as cosmopolitan as it was now. So I would have spent 2.5 years in Paris. I would have met some really wonderful people, really embraced myself in the culture and the language. And I just loved being around different cultures and different people. And I think that was really a great, I suppose, a great university of life as such, for how to talk to people, how to embrace different cultures, and really sort of set the tone for how I do business. I think it was definitely a great, I suppose, foundation for the rest, for the rest of my career. I came home, I did tourism and travel with French, and I got my first job with, it was called Virgin Atlantic CityJet back at the time. And I was a ground hostess. Then I went, I used to sort of help out in the marketing department, and then I went into the ticketing side of things. And at the time, British Airways were advertising for French-speaking cabin crew. So I applied and I was successful. So off I went at 21, packed my bags and went off to London. And I worked for British Airways as a cabin crew for 5.5 years. And I sort of went up the ranks, and I became a purser, which was an in-flight supervisor. So I was quite a young in-flight supervisor, and I would have had quite a lot of responsibility. And from there, British Airways were a wonderful company to work for. They really encouraged you to do lots of courses and to learn more languages. So I did a course in Italian, I learned some Spanish, and then also they also put you through management courses, which were fantastic. And I really sort of availed of a lot of those opportunities whilst I was with British Airways. And they were really forward thinking back then. And really, when I look back now and how the world is, that really they were at the forefront of all of this. It was all about diversity. It was all about, people from all walks of life, from all walks of religion, and everybody worked together as a team, and it was a real team effort. So I think that was a really good sort of foundation to go on into the career that I went into. I decided to leave British Airways when I was 26, and I came back to Dublin, and I got my first job, and I won't say where, in a travel agency. And it was the first time in my life I was like, what have I done? So I had to sit behind a desk, and I was really chatty when customers were come in, and I was dying to tell them about, because I had traveled the world, and I was that was frowned upon. I wasn't able to, and I found this really frustrating. So long story short, we parted ways after 6 weeks, and it was the first time in my life that this had ever happened, and I was really sort of perplexed and sort of, I couldn't believe that I'd come from this fabulous company to, this travel company who just didn't get me. And actually, in hindsight, like, I was not the right fit for them, and they weren't the right fit for me, thankfully. But my friend's father owns the company. We still laugh about it. but then I got a job with Richmond Marketing. So Barry Connolly took a chance on me. Richmond at the time obviously had Red Bull and Carpe Diem Kombucha, which was obviously kombucha now is the cool new drink, but we were doing it 20 years ago. So I worked for them in sort of the events and marketing side of things. So I worked on the on-trade with Richmond, and my job was basically to get the product into the different bars, into the on-trade, and also to look after sampling in the off-trade. You were given a phone and a car, and you had to go and make it happen. So there was a lot of introducing myself to the on-trade, a lot of the different bars, restaurants, and really sort of building up a client base. So I got to know a lot of people. within the industry. And you know, they used to hear my high heels clicking in the door, and they'd be like, oh, here's your one again, trying to sell us kombucha, which really wasn't the thing at the time, but I managed to convince them that it was a really good soft drink alternative to the regular soft drinks from C&C, Coca-Cola, Ballygown, all those. And it worked. And we started doing sort of outdoor events. You know, we were doing Tai Chi in the park on Sundays. We were doing the Kombucha Comfort Zone in the George, where we had a masseuse and we were sort of had a DJ. We were, you know, we used to do it in, you know, down in Ocean Bar, which is now Charlotte Key, and where we would you know, serve healthy snacks with the drink, and then we would have like a wellness talk way before all of this was sort of on trend now. So that really sort of gave me an inkling. I was like, God, I'm actually quite good at this. So I was with Richmond for 5 years, and another drinks company approached me to launch a vodka brand for them. So I did that for a year, and they also had a really brilliant tequila, El Jimador tequila. So it really gave me a taste for what eventually I would have set up myself. So rather than going brand side, a marketing agency approached me and asked me to go in-house. So I worked for a wonderful man called Liam Gaskin, who had Watermark Communications at the time. And again, Liam was, you know, at the forefront of this industry. And at the time he had Beiersdorf, which was Nivea for men, which he would have done the launch for over here, Eucerin. And a lot of my contacts from the previous job that I had, we started working, I brought in Absolute Vodka, Corona Beer, Jägermeister. So we would have worked with a lot of big brands. And so I suppose I really sort of learned my craft within an agency side, how to do things. And I suppose it was a whole different structure. So I had to really sort of invest a lot of time to learn how to do things by, you know, there was a lot more paperwork. There was a lot more structure. So for me, who was used to being out on my own, sort of making it happen, now I had a team that I had to sort of really, and it was quite a challenge for me to sort of had to write reports and sit down and do it all. Whereas before, yes, we did have to do it, but I suppose I had to learn a little bit more structure. So I worked with Watermark, and then we were taken over by the Larkin Partnership, and we did some really great work at the time. They had Primark, they had Nissan, so we would have worked with a lot of really big global brands. And then it was coming up to the last recession, and I had an opportunity. I was like, I gotta just set up my own agency. If it works, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. I can either sink or swim. And, you know, I can go back into an agency or whatever. But you know what? I'm at the age where I kind of feel that I want to do my own thing. So the idea came about, and I suppose I wanted to keep, I thought my surname Hunter was quite a good name for an agency. Because obviously it's, you know, there's a lot of different meanings to the word hunter. So I just thought it was good to sort of keep the name. So I worked with a great designer, and we created the brand. We created you know, sort of all the different assets, you know, from the website all the way through to, you know, our business cards. But at the time, it was just the recession had just hit. Looking back, I was actually probably quite brave, and I was like, oh, you know, I've always had this attitude: if it doesn't work, I can do whatever. Like I would never be afraid to put my hand to anything at all. And you know, if I have to survive, I would work in anything to survive. So that never really bothered me. I think I always had that self-belief. So anyway, I set up Hunter in my third bedroom with a very good friend of mine, Michelle Beattie. Michelle came from Spin 1038, and she was just fantastic. Michelle has a journalistic background. So the two of us worked in my third bedroom for a year. And a lot of some of my clients came with me. It was interesting times, and it was definitely, I was grafting and I was out hustling a lot. That's one thing about me. I'm a good hustler. So I'm not afraid to sort of, I suppose, go for something. If I suppose we always sort of had a vision board of what brands we'd really like to work with, and thankfully, we still are working with a lot of those. So after a year, as things progressed, we moved into an office on Leeson Street. I actually started employing more people. So Louise McSharry, who you'd know very well, 2FM DJ and journalist. Louise worked for me along with Sarah Costello, who's still with me to this day. So Sarah and Louise joined me, and we would have sort of aligned ourselves with some of the bigger advertising agencies who were looking to offer PR as an additional service to their repertoire, I suppose. So we worked with one of the bigger advertising agencies, and we won a huge account with them. And it would have been a large technical retailer. And we worked on that account for 5 years. So we really sort of started to grow our business. I suppose I suppose I've met a lot of interesting people along the way. And one of those people that I was introduced to through a brand, Bang & Olufsen, that we were working with, was Conor McGregor. He were offering Conor a set of headphones. It was just before he was about to explode. So I met Conor in Dublin, and I got a call from his American agency asking me if I would be involved with Conor on the Irish side of things. So we agreed, and I suppose I was with Conor on that journey for 5 years. I don't work with Conor anymore. I still think he's great, but we don't work together anymore. But I suppose I would have really sort of opened my eyes to managing people. And I would have, we would have been working with bloggers for 12 years. So I really sort of saw that online was where I was at. It was definitely something that I was quite instrumental in with a lot of the brands that we worked with. We were always sort of pushing the blogger point of view, and also sort of, we would have done a lot of stuff with MySpace, Bebo, all that sort of thing. So I suppose I saw an opportunity for, it's nearly 4 years now, it will be 4 years in August, to work with a lot more content creators. And I suppose with Hunter, we work with a lot of really great brands, a lot of FMCG brands. So we work with Musgraves, Frank and Honest, and Musgraves Future Trends, and All Tater Snacks. So we would work in this area, and we would have used a lot of content creators as the years went on. So we decided, let's make this into an actual business, because we collaborate with people all the time. So we decided to set up the collaborations agency.
Did you ever, I know, you kind of said, I never really get afraid, I always just think I can move on to the next thing. But in setting up a whole company around this online creator space, do you ever worry or get the fear that maybe you have set up a company that is potentially backing something that won't last?
Not at all. This business is not going away, and anyone who says it is completely wrong. If anything, it's only going to grow bigger. Look at the pandemic that we're in, that we're not in office spaces. Look at some of the advertising campaigns. If you see some of the wonderful work that SuperValu or Centre, any of them are doing, they're not able to shoot campaigns, but they're using content creators to shoot the campaigns for them. Look at, the brand assets, new product launches. Everybody's had to adapt. So now more than ever, people need content creators and really good food. Even the FMCG industry, like some of our guys are top talent. They are creating phenomenal work. And I think definitely, if anything, I think it's shown that there's two uses for online. There's fun and there's use. So people want to find out information, or they want to, they want to learn something, or they want to have, that humor, they want to escape. And I think, the really great content creators are doing phenomenal jobs. Like, take James Kavanagh, for example. Some of the campaigns that he's worked on for White Claw, like some of the work that he's doing for Tesco at the moment, is just phenomenal. Like, he's able to create humor but get the message across in a really smart, engaging way. Like, he's just a genius at it, and like, I know for myself, definitely Instagram, and sure, look at TikTok. Like, TikTok has exploded during lockdown. So if anything, it's only getting started. And I think as an agency, I think we've had to adapt, and we're constantly learning and finding out about new platforms, how we can constantly learn and grow as an agency, how we can, report better back to brands, give them, we're constantly talking to our clients, how can we improve, what do you need from us? Like, after every single campaign, we give a full report. We're constantly in the background looking at other platforms, how we can develop, how can we do better, and constantly evolve. And that's what our end goal is. We're really at infancy stage now as an agency. Like, you're going to see a lot more from us coming down the line. It's especially that we have seen in the last few months how crucial content creators are in times like this. Like, if you look at Lidl's ads or any of the multiples, they're all relying on people to create the content for them at home. So it's not going anywhere.
From the outside looking in, it could be perceived that, especially in Dublin, because we are a small city, that the PR world could be slightly saturated. So what do you think it was about Hunter, or about you as a CEO or founder, that really set yourself apart and made people buy into you, as opposed to sticking with, I guess, the traditional PR giants that have been around for a decade?
Yeah, I think the hunger, and I think the enthusiasm, and I think any clients that will ever meet us, I think we've got a lot of enthusiasm for them. I've got a brilliant professional team that have a lot of experience. Like, we've got a combined experience of over 30 years between us. But also we've got some of the hottest new talent working with us as well, who've got their finger on the pulse. I think I think as a collaborative team, I think we're immersed in culture. I think we're immersed in trends, forecasting. I think we live and breathe the brand. So I think we are the target audience that we're speaking to. And I think we're quite good at identifying key trends before they happen. And I think a lot of the times we encourage our brands to delve into that before it becomes mainstream. And I think sometimes that's why that's one thing that Barry Connolly really sort of taught me with Richmond Marketing, was to I suppose allow ourselves to have that bit of devilment, and to sort of not be afraid, and to have a bit of fun. And I think one of the clients that have really sort of embraced that, and I think we work with a brilliant marketing manager, Carol, who is the brand marketing manager for Tato, is that it's a collaborative approach. And she trusts us, and obviously that we do listen to them as well if they have any doubts, and then we sort of meet in the middle. We're always sort of thinking outside the box. And it was sort of pop-up shops before they became, everybody did the same one on South William Street, and it was just like wallpaper. It was just a new brand slapping their sort of their branding outside, but there was nothing different. So anytime we ever did a pop-up shop, we always wanted to do it in a unique space and offer something that was that little bit talkability. And 9 times out of 10 we didn't have huge budgets, but we made it work. So I think sometimes that you have to have an imagination, be a bit ballsy, listen to your client, but also sort of ensure that the end goal, that you guys meet in the middle for the end goal, and also to sometimes think outside the box. And I even me saying it, I cringe, because everybody says other thing, but I suppose because there's so much clutter and there's sometimes there's a lot of noise, that you really have to be smart about how you get your message out there. And 9 times out of 10, it's a really simple idea. Don't overcomplicate things. I think sometimes I see brands overcomplicating their message and it gets lost in translation. Whereas if you've got, your key strategy and your key objectives that you need to get out there, keep it simple, but do it in a really smart way. And like we've used some real left field people to get the message out there. And I think sometimes the brands can be nervous, but it's worked. And I think time and time again, I think sometimes you need to sort of keep it fresh and keep it interesting for brands, and that's what we're not afraid of. It's all about the consumer journey and how do you spark interest. And I think sometimes we're good at creating a bit of mischief and sparking that interest. And again and again and again, you don't have to have massive budgets either, but everything has to have the end goal. So why are we doing this? It's to make sales and it's to create brand awareness. And I think there's nothing better, and there's nothing when a brand manager and an agency come together and they're on the same page and they both get it, that's exciting. And that really and I suppose that's where our passion really comes out, because we are really good at what we do and we've done some phenomenal stuff over the years. And I'm just really proud of what we've achieved so far. And like, we're going into, this is year 12 now of Hunter. Like, there's been blood, sweat and tears, and it has been a roller coaster, but we're here and we've done some great work, and we've still got some brilliant work coming down the line. And then with the collaborations agency, again, I've got some fantastic, I've got a brilliant team who've got the same vision as me, and that's exciting. And also, I suppose with ourselves, we're not just looking at Ireland, we're moving into Europe and we're moving into America as a market. So that's really exciting. And that's happening this year.
What does the future hold for both Hunter and the collaborations agency? I know you talked about expansion a little bit, but yeah. I guess, do you have an end goal for each business?
For me, what's really important is that drive when I wake up every morning and I want to go to work. And my ex-boss would have always said that to me, that, it's when you don't want to get out of bed and you don't want to go into work, that your heart's not in anymore. But thankfully, every morning I've still got that drive. I work with a brilliant team and we get on really well. We're not all, high-fiving and each other every day. There's sometimes if we have a disagreement over something, it can get heated, but I think that's good and it shows passion. But we're overall, we're good friends and we listen to each other, which is really, really, really important. And I want to create an environment that everybody has a voice and everybody's opinions matter. And I want to do good work. And that's why, we do a lot of work in the background with a lot of really great charities, and we have done over the years. I think that's so important, that everything that we do, it's all about giving back as well. And that's sort of at the forefront. And, with Hunter, there's a lot of stuff coming down the line, and there's some really great brands that we work with.
Leading on from that, it's very evident that you've experienced a lot of success in your career. So I'd be interested to know if you had a personal definition of what the word success means to you.
Oh, that's a good one. What does the word success? Waking up in the morning and not having fear, I think. Yes, sometimes we have the fear of unknown, but success is walking into my office and having a really happy team, and people are content with their jobs, and having a really great crew around me. I think that's what success is. And also, like, I'm building this company to have a legacy. I think I've sort of hopefully done my father proud with sort of having this legacy to pass on to my nieces and nephews and hopefully children at some stage. But yeah, I think success for me is coming into the office or working with a team that I know care and have that same passion and drive that I do. And I think that's what I'm most proud about, and I think that's what success is to me.
That's a really nice definition. I love that. And I just have one more question for you, and then I'm going to let you go
Sure.
on. If I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, having been through everything you've been through, both in, personal life and career, what's
Yeah.
the biggest piece of advice you'd give your 10-year-old self moving forward in life?
If you'd have known me when I was 10, and I suppose a lot of my friends still laugh about it, is that I was always the kid to put the hand up to sing at the top of the class. So I always had that self-belief. But yeah, I think believing in yourself is a huge thing, regardless of whether you're really academic or not. I think sometimes 10-year-olds, and especially in secondary school, I think there can that huge pressure on exams, and if you don't do well in your exams, there's always an avenue to get into whatever you want to do. And I think you don't have to go down, sometimes college isn't for everybody, but if you have that belief and you know that you have that passion, I firmly believe that people can get there. So I think, if anything, 10-year-old self, just keep being a chancer and keep knocking down those doors and never give up. And that's basically my motto, has always been just that I know I can do this, and I know I can do it really well. And yeah, I think I would have high-fived my 10-year-old self.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, subscribe, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Lynn's services, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back on Thursday with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Lynns.